Talking about the games that I like is easy. I've been playing video games since before I was old enough to even formulate memories of playing them for the first time. I've come to understand very intimately what kinds of things I like doing. I know what kinds of experiences resonate with me. You could ask me about any game that I like, and I'll probably be able to give you at least a half-hour of discussion without needing additional input. But talking about games that I love? Now that's difficult. Where do I even start? Does listing off bullet points on why it's great really emphasize how important these games are? And it's especially trying when describing a game that has only recently become truly special to me. Can I convince others that this new thing I've just come around to is not just a passing fad I'll forget about in a few months? Can I convince myself of the same thing? There is one thing I do know, however. The longer I stare at a blank page, the more I know I truly love what it is I'm talking about. And in the history of my entire career analyzing video games, there are few times I ever stared at a blank page for as long as this one. Which means it's time for me to crack the code. It's time to formulate an opinion for everyone in the world to hear. It's time for me to ask, why is Wild Arms the best frickin' PS1 RPG? Okay, hold on now, let's back that up. The PlayStation 1 is home to some of the most iconic and well-respected RPGs ever created. Games like Final Fantasy VII, The Legend of Dragoon, Xenogears, Suikoden II, and so many more. Yet I claim the supposed best RPG on the console is some 7 out of 10 trite? You're damn right it is. How could it not be considered as great as it is? It features a main character with massive bazongas. Bazookas! Take it from someone who has played all the games listed previously. I've enjoyed the simple act of playing this game more than the rest. Wild Arms may not have been released with the most fortunate timing. It may not have been able to push the boundaries of the console's limits. It may not be a widely remembered franchise that many cling to hope will make a comeback during the next state of play. Although, having said that, Armed Fantasia looks pretty sick. But Wild Arms has a heart. It's passionate. It's a game that knows less is more, but isn't content if it can't provide an experience that is more for less. Wild Arms is a game that truly feels gigantic. If you were to ask me how much time I put into this game over my playthrough, I might have estimated it took me at least 50 hours. But it turns out Wild Arms only goes for a cool 30, which is among the shorter runtimes for this era of RPGs. This is all due to its pacing. Wild Arms has so many events, but they all happen so fast. Dungeons never run on for longer than they need to, and even the slower moments are appropriately extended. It's a game that uses a narrow scope to its benefit. Rudy, Jack, and Cecilia may be your only party members throughout the game, but that really isn't a problem. The benefit of this small cast is that each one has their own role in the game that contributes to how they fight, and their toolkit and options expand beyond just leveling up. Cecilia is your mage. Hidden in the various chests around the world are crest graphs that can be taken to a magic shop to acquire new spells of black or white variety. You have the option to pick whatever spells you want. Decide you don't like the spells you chose? Then dissolve the spell and get back the crest graph to try another one instead. How liberating! Jack is the least dynamic of the crew, as he gets inspiration for new fast draw techniques from the environment. Although you'll only get the hints, not the actual move itself. It'll take Jack some time to apply that hint to practice before finally learning the move properly. Since Jack learns these abilities at fixed locations, you can't decide for yourself what's beneficial for the upcoming playtime. It takes a bit of trial and error, but their versatility and raw power is absolutely worth it. But don't discount Rudy. Although his slow response speed means he'll probably act last in battle turns, he has the ability to use arms. These devastating firearms are his alone to find and wield. While they don't have unlimited ammo, they can be upgraded to your liking. Once he fires his rocket launcher true, the bosses won't know what hit them. In addition to all of a character's unique attributes, they can also take advantage of the force gauge. As characters deal and take damage, they will build up force. This force can be spent on special abilities during combat that offer different utility options. The weaker abilities only require 25% of the force gauge, while the ultimate abilities require all 100%. But another detail to consider is that if you manage to completely fill the force gauge, the character will go into condition green, which will automatically cure any negative status effects. So there's also strategic consideration to not using your abilities, as that can potentially help as well. These are all the makings of truly tense fights, constantly having so many tools and options to play around with at any time. But there is one admittedly huge problem that I noticed from very early on, and it never really resolved itself until it was far too late. The combat is not very engaging. This may be in the running for being one of the easiest games of its genre that I've ever played. And I do want to stress that the lack of challenge is not equivalent to being devoid of fun. I don't even need a game to be all that difficult, but I want it to be more than just mashing X and eventually winning. As it turns out, you can get through most of Wild Arms by just mashing X and hoping for the best. It's only at the 10-hour mark where this game finally starts pushing back against you, but as long as you engage the battle mechanics using the options you have, any challenge the game puts up is immediately snapped in half. The moment I discovered the strategy, that exact same strategy worked for the entire rest of the game. Like with Jack's Meteor Fall Fast Draw, you get it early in the game, and it's so powerful that I did not feel incentivized to even try the other fast draw techniques when I got them, including the one that brands itself as the ultimate ability. Sure, some of the super bosses can show you what for if you start out being reckless, but if I'm going into a super boss overconfident that I'll be able to win, then the game wasn't challenging enough leading up to them. Frankly, the battles are also just not that exciting either. Animations are stiff, and the camera panning is so awkward. There's something about the way that everything moves that feels artificial and robotic. It's one of those things that make you realize just how big of an impact Final Fantasy VII left. But even with an unexciting combat system that is both standard fare in terms of mechanics, as well as not offering up suitable resistance at regular intervals, Wild Arms doesn't fall into the trap of being a boring game. At the very least, the combat system is functional. And if nothing else, Wild Arms isn't solely relying on its battle system to keep players engaged with the offered experience, because almost everything else it sets out to do is arguably better than any other game of the same generation, and arguably better than many games that have come out since. Like, my guy, this game has dungeons. There are far too many RPGs out there where the dungeons are just walking down a long corridor, distracting you with random battles that only seem to contribute to the player's thinning patience. But Wild Arms goes the extra mile. Wild Arms has traps to avoid and puzzles to solve, and if you know me, this means I think Wild Arms has some of the best RPG dungeons by default. At any given time, you have multiple paths you can explore, and it's up to you to piece together the layout of the dungeon yourself. The dungeons may not ever be too complicated, and it is hard to get lost, but I still greatly appreciate that I have to be somewhat involved when going through someplace threatening. In addition, each character comes equipped with their own tools that can interact with the environment in different ways. Rudy's bombs can blow away obstacles. Jack's companion Handpan can reach faraway treasure chests to recover their contents. And Cecilia's pocket watch can reset a room, allowing you to retry a puzzle from the very beginning. But each character will eventually unlock 3 more unique tools, allowing them to solve different kinds of puzzles. Whew, man, we're giving Golden Sun a run for its money here. Some of the puzzles can be too simple or too convoluted for their own good, but I'm happy that Wild Arms at least tried. And because the game offers up something a little different every hour, it means that every hour is a refreshing change of pace from the last. It makes the game stand out and feel unique. In fact, nothing truly encapsulates how special an experience this game is more than its setting. The world of Filgaia is one that is ripe with danger, filled with devious rapscallions and honest vagabonds. Wild Arms is unique in that it takes most of its identity from the American Wild West and the various film adaptations that depicted it. But not content to rely solely on that setting, it blends in with many other common RPG tropes. High fantasy, creation mythology, science fiction. It throws everything into the kitchen sink. I can't fathom how, but this insane amount of genre blending somehow works. I think it's because Wild Arms reveals its hands from the start, establishing all these concepts within the opening hours, and doesn't try to shove in new elements as the game progresses onward at the cost of expanding what they already have. All the different parts get the same amount of focus. You'll spend some time in the wastelands, some time in floating castles, and even some time in high-tech laboratories. In fact, one could argue that the setting is a literalized version of a man versus machine story. Metal demons may have been the source of conflict, but later revelations reveal that human technology has caused just as much, if not more destruction to the planet. All the while, the guardians and divine deities of Filgaia have become largely forgotten by the people as hopelessness continues to pervade. This game can get pretty dark at times, and isn't shy of allowing devastating consequences to happen throughout the world. The Attract Mode prologue opens with the destruction of a kingdom with only one survivor, and the first chapter of the game culminates with the destruction of a major city and a haunting funeral march. And sadly, that's not the last, nor second last time you'll have to deal with that in Wild Arms. Despite their best efforts, the godlike deities of the universe are skeptical of the protagonist's chances to save the world. It's not only an interesting flip on the traditional RPG script, as there are no chosen ones, but it really sells the bleak state of the world when even the best chance the world has doesn't seem like enough. But you can't have drama be impactful if it isn't paired with levity. Wild Arms remembers when it's important to crank up the funny business. And for one character in particular, being funny is his business. Look at this absolute lad. Zed was the greatest fictional character ever created until the great Ace Attorney wrote Herlock Sholmes. Love this dude. Some people may be saying, oh, but he's just a Gilgamesh ripoff, which is a true statement. But of course he is. Gilgamesh was the greatest fictional character until Wild Arms wrote Zed. I stand up and clap whenever Zed shows up on screen. My favorite dungeon of the game is essentially a huge battle of wits between you and Zed. At every turn is a new trap, and you have to overcome each of them. There's just one little hang-up with the concept, though. He's kind of dumb. The best bit of the whole dungeon, though, is when you come up to this huge door that is password locked. Wait a minute, I didn't find a password anywhere. This isn't good. Okay, let's just try something and see what happens. Oh snap, it worked! Dang, thank goodness that You fool! I set that door so it would open for any password. You aren't clever at all! And then he doesn't elaborate and then leaves. Okay, you know what? I'll give it to him. I got played. But Zed's not a bad guy. In reality, he's got a big heart. A side quest at the end of the game pops up and reveals that he's taking care of a blind girl. He found something to live for aside from fighting. Also, I don't know much about Alter Code F, but I do know that Zed is a playable character, so I guess that's actually the definitive version of the game. But there's more than just the villains, there's also the heroes. It's maybe an exaggeration to say that the main cast goes through any profound growth. Each of the team embodies a trait of humanity that helps us grow into stronger people. I'll give you a hint. Rudy is hope, Jack is courage, Cecilia is love. I dare you to guess what their character arcs will be. Their growth is quite simple, but there are times we need to be reminded of the simple lessons in life. Not everything needs to be super complex and nuanced to leave an impact, and I'm glad that Wild Arms realized there's no sense in overreaching. Some things have remained tradition because they're good ideas. There are a few things I wish could have been better. For example, I'm not really a fan of how Rudy is a silent protagonist despite having a specific backstory and character arc, and I'm glad that future Wild Arms games seem to drop that idea. Although I'm happy to say that I did love the characters that populated this story. Whether their roles were big or small, they did contribute to a game that feels bigger than it is. Wild Arms is a game that's a little easy, a little buggy, and even a little quaint. It's a game that does feature some problems, and yet those problems seem to evaporate when I consider how much I truly enjoy this game. I view just how passionate this game is. This is actually the first RPG that its developer Media Vision created. One thing that I'm always told about art is that you'll love creating something you enjoy seeing, and I feel like Wild Arms is a game that was made by people who loved RPGs. It may not be the best in any particular area of creativity and design, but every part that brings it together is good, providing an experience that is cohesive, and that isn't something I think should ever be undervalued in a game. This was almost the closest I've come to experiencing post-fiction depression. I wasn't sad that it was over, but I suppose I did lament that the experience eventually concluded. Maybe that sounds silly for a game where the characters look like they were ripped straight from Bomberman, but given my context for when and how I played it, I think my deep affection is only natural. For once, this wasn't a game I was rushing to complete. I took my time with it. I endured what felt like a long and extended journey. It was almost like I was another dream chaser in Filgaia, as if I endured the same journey alongside the protagonists. But to see them rise up in spite of all the adversity staring back at them, it was moving. I'm now someone who's become extremely jaded in the ways of the world and lost a lot of the hope I once had. And yet, the characters of Filgaia, despite inhabiting a truly desolate land, still love the world they're in. It's a nice little reminder that no matter how bleak things become, there are places, people, and even machines worth loving. I'm man enough to say that I absolutely shed tears while reading Cecilia's letter, reflecting on how happy she was to go on that life-changing journey. Perhaps it wasn't as life-changing for me. After all, this isn't the first time I saved the world from demons, and it's not going to be the last either. But it is a journey I am grateful to have gone on, one that I wish I had partaken earlier in my life, and one that I hope to re-embark on again in the future. Because I loved this world of Filgaia. I love the people that inhabit it. I love Wild Arms.